we never really know what anybody's going through. The surface that we show people is often our armor that we use to face the world. But this armor gets in the way for artists. It makes it where the stuff we want to actually reach within us to be able to write down things that will convey emotion to people, the feelings that we're trying to dig to get to then be able to share with everyone, the more armor we put up, the harder it is to get there. When you realize that somebody like Brian Wilson, who we just lost very recently, so it just made me think of so many things to talk about. But every interview I've ever seen of Brian Wilson, tell me if you guys agree, there's like a childlike quality to him. There's there's a feeling you get when you listen to him talk and you try to just see a glimpse of what's going on inside his head. I see a lot of things. I see a guy who ultimately was so in touch with his emotions that he was able to get to places that some of us think is way too scary for us to get to. It's no secret I break down sometimes on camera because I'm an extremely emotional person. I experience extreme highs and extreme lows, and I don't think I'm alone in this. If we don't numb ourselves, so one way or another, some of us do it just by watching YouTube shorts constantly, or watching a series of some TV show that we don't care about, or playing video games, or we can numb ourselves 100,000 ways that have nothing to do with drugs, essentially. But if we numb ourselves, we make it where it's even harder to get to these emotions. So you got the armor and you got the numbing that people go through to prevent them from feeling anything, making it all very impossible to ever write something that feels real to other people. To make someone else cry or to make someone so emotionally involved in your song, you need to make them feel things that are real. Now, in that song, there's a number of different kind of themes and motifs that people could say that song is about. And nobody really knows what it's about. Sometimes the songwriter doesn't even know what a song they are writing is about. All they know is they're compelled to say certain things because it makes them feel something. Now, where they pick the things they say from, different for everyone. A lot of guys like Jimi Hendrix would have a notebook on him at all times in his back pocket, like a little pad thing, to put down stuff that meant something to him lyrically, because the music would flow out of him and the lyrics, he didn't want to just say nothing. So he had to write down things that were something. Anything that meant something to him that he heard throughout the day, he'd write it down. A lot of us should be doing this because if you're somebody who can just wake up, which is, I believe, the story that goes to how Brian Wilson wrote God Only Knows, which is one of my absolute favorite songs ever. I believe he had listened to Rubber Soul by the Beatles. He woke up the next morning and started playing it. Basically started writing that song and it all came out. Now, that's a pretty amazing thing. It's kind of stream of consciousness. If anybody's written songs, probably had a moment or two where songs came out that way very naturally. But sometimes you might get all the music and no lyrics, or sometimes you get some lyrics that mean something, but you don't have the melody for it or you don't have the music. It's not always the same way. But the common theme here, in my opinion, is that people write songs based on the world that they are living in, how they perceive the world. That's the kind of songs that they write. Sometimes it's an idealized version of that, but a lot of times it's just the way their mind, the soundtrack to their own mind. Like, for example, why is it that every James Brown song has that James Brown feel to it? That sound, when you hear it, it's unmistakable. Same with Sly Stone. Why is when you hear a Sly Stone song, it's like, what is it that it just gives you a feeling of that artist? Why does the Beach Boys have such a sound? Because it's him. Because he was a critical part of the making of that in all ways. So nothing got censored or changed from somebody coming in and being like, no, this is how the kick drum should sound. No, this is how, no, we shouldn't have, three pianos doing this. Nobody changed his idea of what he wanted. And because he was able to do so many things, he was able to achieve a vision that was the exact sounds he was hearing in his head. Now, so much to learn from this. One is that, something I learned early on, which is you could be a songwriter and a guitarist, songwriter, vocalist, whatever, then you might join a band. Now, the way the band adds their flavors to it is going to influence what you're doing. So, got to join up with the right band because you have to still like where things are going once you've added those elements. Then, if you record with somebody, that engineer has a huge impact on what the band sounds like, which is something every band knows. That's why when you hear stuff like, Nirvana, you get Cobain talking about the sound Steve Albini was able to get on a lot of his records was the sound he was always hearing in his head. Kurt Cobain said, that sound, I've been hearing that sound my whole life for how I pictured our band sounding. And Steve Albini makes things sound that way because basically Steve was always a fan of what does the band really sound like and in a room live, not a, produced version. And there's no right or wrong here. It's just that's what Steve liked and that's what aligned with what Kurt heard, so they were a good match. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to any engineer is going to have an effect. So learning how to mix, very helpful for you if you're going to try to make your stuff sound great. There's a great story where George Martin listened to Good Vibrations. George Martin was invited to Brian Wilson's house, listened to Good Vibrations, and, Brian wanted like his help with it, was my understanding. And George basically sat at the desk, the mixing desk, thought about it for a minute or two, and then said, I can't improve on perfection. Like, what do you want me to do? There's nothing more to do here. And George Martin, the producer of the Beatles, if you're not familiar with who I'm talking about. So there's something to be said for a guy who could do so much. He could do so much, but in my opinion, it's the fact that he was so in touch with his pain, with his inner demons. He experienced them. For all of you out there who feel alone, because maybe you think no one is as depressed as you, because you think maybe you have it terrible, nothing goes right for you. Whatever the situation is that you've created in your head for why it's so bad to be you, he had it very, very bad also, Brian Wilson. And the pain that people go through is inevitably a reason why they become artists. It's like a means of escaping because, like I said, when they write that song, they can create a world. That's why bands have sounds. That's why Pet sounds the way it does. One of the best albums ever. That's why the Beach Boys sound the way they do, because that was Brian Wilson's version of the world. So it's freeing to become a musician, but it's only freeing if you allow yourself to be free. You have to allow yourself to mess up, to fail, to literally put out only stuff that you think is great. Forget everybody else. Somebody put a great comment on a video because it allowed me to really just reflect on my own self. They wrote, what they like to do is play their song for a few close friends and family and judge their reactions to know what they should do next. In my opinion, terrible idea. One of the worst, because if you flip a coin 5 times, that doesn't tell you anything. You could get tails 4 times. Does it mean that you're always going to get tails 4 out of 5 times you flip? No, it doesn't mean that. Flip it 100,000 times and now see what you get. So by judging based on a tiny sample size, you're never going to know anything. And it will always steer you down some path that's based not on anything real. It should be based on what you think, what you want as the creator, the person who writes the music. Or whatever it is, even if maybe you're a mixer and you play your mixes for people to know what they think. It's the same. Doesn't matter. You shouldn't do it. All that matters is what you think. That must be your guiding light. Forget what other people think. All right. Now, if you're a mixer working for an artist, you navigate that however you want, because there's no right or wrong way to navigate how to please a person who's hired you. That's a different thing. If we talk about making music for yourself, you know, there's so many artists out there who, like Brian Wilson, who if they shared what they were making with someone in their life who was close with them, it could have steered them down a path that was different, and it would never have been authentically them. See, Brian's life and his upbringing, I haven't mentioned yet, but he used to get beaten by his dad. And he says this in interviews. So you can find him saying that on the internet. It's not hard to find. Just look up Brian Wilson and father, Brian Wilson and his father kind of thing. And you'll find him talking about it. But the bottom line is he became deaf in one ear because his dad whacked him so hard on his head that he made him deaf practically in one ear. So talk about a crazy upbringing. And something like that, the pain of that no child should ever have to experience, became part of why he had to be an artist, why he had something to say, why he was able to basically free himself from all that torment and torture by creating the Beach Boys and writing these songs and basically having an outlet for his pain. So many of us take that pain that we feel, the depression, the hurt, and we just bottle it up, and we think we're not worthy, so we don't put it out. We don't think we're ever going to win because we haven't, so we don't try. That's the worst thing you could do. The best thing you could do is realize that use the armor to push away the idea that anyone else's thoughts about you matter. Use your armor to do that, but take the armor off when you're around people you love, and especially when you're around yourself. When you need to write, dig deep, get to the part that makes you feel something, that makes you hurt, and then don't circle around it. Right at the center of it, like a dart on a dartboard. Get exactly what it is you want to say written down. And every time you hear something throughout a day that makes sense to you or that hits you in a certain way, write it down. Because when it comes time to, I want to say something, what am I going to say? I have nothing. Now you have something to say. As opposed to people who write about nothing, trivial surface level stuff that never is going to touch anybody. Look for the stuff that makes you feel something deeply. The most painful thing that hits you, that's what you write about. And the worse you've been through it, the more you'll have to write about. So when you see somebody who's writing amazing stuff, more often than not, it's because of somebody's upbringing like a Brian Wilson, or some traumatic situation in their life, like Brian Wilson's trauma, that allows him to get there. Because there's not like a rule book for how to write well. It's about how in touch with your emotions are you. And then you bring the world into your world. You bring everyone into it in your songs. It's a freeing moment because you are the ruler and the creator of that world. You make it however you want. And if you have something to share, I bet you people will feel just like you feel. That's the connection that they feel when I hear God Only Knows. I feel connected to that because those words mean something to me and the music means something. It just hits. I don't need to know exactly what he's saying and what it means. I don't even need. All I know is it makes me feel because it's coming from somebody who felt. So stop trying to be tough and put on this armor nonsense. That's only good in dangerous situations. And it's also good to get rid of the voices. Look at it like this, all right? If you live the next year of your life thinking this way, everything will change for you. You ready? Every time you do anything, it's great because you did it. You need nothing else but that to actually make something, put it out there, and then see if it flies. That's all you need. You did it right. You did it great because you did it. That's all you need. That's how you develop a little bit of toughness in the fact that you're not going to let anybody opinions of anything they say about your work stop you. It's great because you did it. You can't do it better because you did it. Just look at it that way. Put out everything you've ever worked on that you feel something from, and write things you feel something from. Only write those things. Whenever you see yourself dancing around, you just knock that off and get right to the meat of the problem, right to the root of what you're trying to say. Say it. It takes balls. It takes bravery. And somebody like that, like Brian Wilson, it's a shame when people go, and there's a lot of people who have gone recently, and it's just, it just feels like the older I get, the more I recognize people just don't stick around forever, and it's a part of life. Sly Stone, it's a shame. Brian Wilson, it's a total shame. Anybody I forgot, throw it in the comments. Anybody that you guys, think I should, that you want to mention, throw in there. But bottom line, we only got so much time. Write the things that mean something to you. Can you imagine the world we'd have if guys like Brian Wilson didn't summon the bravery to do what they needed to do because of the pain they experienced? Be that. Change people's lives with the stuff you're feeling, the real stuff. That's all you got to do. Have the bravery to do it. Forget what everybody thinks. You guys got this. I'll talk to you soon. Take it easy.